Okay,
All right, we're recording.
great. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for participating in our very first parent webinar series. So today we're going to have Jessica as our speaker. So Jessica is right now pursuing her doctorate degree in school psychology. She's very close to graduating. She's soon to be Dr. Krass. And Jazz's clinical experience centers around the implementation of interventions using social emotional learning strategies and cognitive behavior therapy to improve student engagement. Jessica has been working at the Haven as an extern this year, and she will be coming back to us as an intern next year. So you guys would interact with her next year as well. So Jessica also works in the Somerville School District with students. It's kind of like alternative high school placement for kids that are struggling with social, emotional, and psychological or academic difficulties. Jessica is a core presence in her Egyptian community and has worked with students from grade K to 8 for several years as a counselor at her church. Jessica is also interested in the dissemination of mental health resources across various cultural contexts in the hopes of alleviating mental health stigma and empowering youth. So she's really experienced in this area, and we will give the floor to Jessica. Thanks for giving us your insights and wisdom.
Thank you so for the very warm welcome, Hui, and very nice to meet all the parents today. So yeah, we're going to be talking about family conflict and sibling rivalry, two topics that I am, very well versed on personally, but also from my work with clients. So we'll get started and just do a quick kind of run through of some things that are important to consider with both of these areas of interest, and then we'll open up to questions. So broadly, what is family conflict? So essentially, the definition is conflict can happen when family members have different views or beliefs that clash. Sometimes conflict can occur when people misunderstand each other and jump to the wrong conclusion. So, of course, between us and our kids, us and our spouses, really anyone within the family context, we're always going to have different beliefs and views, and that unfortunately can cause conflict, especially now with our kids growing up in this very technology, social media age. Some of us parents might not really understand where they're coming from with certain topics, and our views might not align super well. So this can obviously be a breeding ground for a lot of different conflicts and disagreements and issues. And this is just one realm of where the issues can start. But overall, family conflict is just an umbrella term to describe issues that happen within the family dynamic. So, some common causes of family conflict. I've listed a couple here. Of course, there's so many others that can be subsumed under this category. So, number one can be poor communication. I feel like this is kind of the main area where conflict can arise because conflict and issues within the family dynamic can arise for multiple reasons. But often, what I've seen and what I've experienced myself is that there is some always misunderstanding or some communication that isn't done adequately, which then causes people in the family to be confused as to another person's intentions, not really understanding the person fully and what their intentions were with a specific problem. So, poor communication is really something that I've seen to be kind of a main issue when it comes to family conflict. Second could be life changes and transitions. Of course, this is more of a general, broader issue that can arise in a family context. So, we're moving out of district. Let's say one of your kids has been in the district for 3 years, is in like third grade, fourth grade, and suddenly there's a reason mom or dad gets a new job. Okay, we need to pick up and move somewhere else to get new job, new district, new friends. Of course, this can cause issues between the kids in the family, leaving their friends, going somewhere new, trying new areas, stuff like that. So life changes and transitions amongst the family can also be a common cause of family conflict. Third, separation, divorce. Parents are not immune from issues of family conflict, and often issues of separation, divorce, marital stress, marital struggles. Kids notice that. Kids are a witness to all of that, and of course, this is a stressor for the parents as well, going through that separation, going through that divorce. So not only isn't it a conflict between spouses, but a conflict between kids and parents, and getting each other to support each other during a time like that, which is incredibly difficult. Next, another cause of family conflict is a change in finances. In this current economy, everything is just getting more and more expensive. So, even before this, finances can always be a point of stress and struggle. So a change in that, or a parent losing a job, being unemployed for a period of time, of course, can cause conflict and issues in the family dynamic. Next, we have family stress. This is another just very broad term. It can mean a wide range of things, but just stressors. This can be a cultural thing. In my community, for example, we're very tight knit, but that in and of itself can be a stressor. Just the way families communicate, the way they interact based on culture, based on financial status, based on tradition. That in and of itself can create a stressful family environment, and realizing what kids and parents need within that dynamic, and piecing that apart can be stressful. And finally, sibling conflicts, and we're gonna get into sibling rivalry later. But kids, siblings. I have a big family. I have a lot of siblings, so every daughter, brother, sister, brother, everyone, we think differently. So of course, there's going to be issues, conflicts between each other, and mitigating that between the siblings, and as well with the parents as well, can be an issue of conflict. This is a very broad, kind of bulleted list of some things that can be done to handle family conflict. So this is just some things to keep in mind. So the first thing I have up here is the issue worth fighting about? This is the first question that comes to mind. I have a conflict. This is something that's about to happen. I realize the tension is high in the room. Is this issue that I'm about to present to my mom, dad, sister, brother, is this worth fighting about? Is this worth losing my peace? Is this worth getting into conflict about? And we have a very common saying, choose your battles. That is incredibly important to take into account when it comes to family conflict. So that's kind of like a first thing that I recommend to parents that have conflict within the family, and as well as between siblings. Separating the problem from the person. This is huge. Oftentimes we might relay our anger towards a child, or towards a spouse, or relay our sadness or any kind of negative emotion. And the person might be like, is this my fault? Is this person mad at me because I did something wrong? And that's where poor communication comes in, right? So if I'm upset because I lost my job, and as a result, I am, for example, lashing out at my kids for some odd reason, they don't really know that. They might not know that mom is angry or dad is angry or feeling upset because they're going through financial stress. They might just assume that to be, mom is mad at me because I did something wrong. And although it's hard for us to, in that moment, kind of give a little bit more communication to our children or spouse or whoever that may be of, hey, I'm not mad at you, I'm just going through a stressful time, that can really be a very easy way to mitigate a problem that might have gotten worse and worse in the future. So, easy communication from the start, and separating problem from the person. Cooling off first if you feel too angry to talk about it calmly. Parents, I empathize with you. I can completely imagine that there's some moments you just, can't hold back anger or can't hold back that frustration. And it's hard to keep cool in the moment. But of course, when we're in a better headspace, we're calmer, we're able to speak more clearly, we're able to communicate better, and we're able to relay our message more adequately. So cooling off before communicating to whoever's in the family about this conflict that's being discussed. Keeping in mind that the goal is to resolve the conflict and not win the argument. This is also just something within couples. Sometimes it's like a competition. Like, I need to make sure that I win this argument. I'm defending my point. But of course, within couples, within sibling relationships, between families, of course, if you're in the mentality of I need to win this, you're not listening to the other person in front of you. You're just, hearing them, and hearing and listening are two entirely different concepts. I can hear all the words you're saying, but am I truly listening to the message of your words? That's huge when it comes to this. So I want to resolve the conflict. My end goal is so that we all are on better terms. So let me hear, let me listen, and let me really get to the point of what this conflict is about, and not focus too much on winning it. Next is to define the problem and stick to the topic. I'm sure in the midst of all of these problems, I know I mentioned a couple of them, they can all be happening at one time. Sticking to a problem that's happening at a certain time and focusing your attention on that is a great way to zero in that focus, and handle things piece by piece so it's not too burdensome altogether. Finding points of common ground is also incredibly important. If we're all in a different mindset and we all have different opinions on things, and we're all, yelling, screaming, this, that, and the other, it's going to be incredibly hard to handle that family conflict and get to a resolution at the end. So finding that points of common ground. Let's say everyone in the room, we decided that this person needs to change this kind of behavior. Okay, we're all on the same page now. We're all agreeing on this exact type of behavior. Let's focus there. And then we can go into other topics or other issues of behavior later on. But finding those points of common ground early on is definitely helpful. And then finally, really simple one is agree to disagree. We're not always going to agree with our family members. Sometimes our siblings, our parents, our spouses, they're going to say things that we just simply do not agree with. And that is quite literally just okay. We're not always going to agree with each other. And sometimes agreeing to disagree is the best way to just not put more fuel in the fire. Okay, and now we're going to get into sibling rivalry. I know there's probably some questions that are coming up along the way, but just keep them in the back of your minds and we'll kind of make space at the end. So sibling rivalry, again, I want to start defining the term. So it's a type of competition or animosity among siblings. It may involve verbal or physical fighting, name calling, bickering, and competing for parental attention. So this is again a very broad definition, and sibling rivalry can come in a variety of different ways and can look different across different families, different cultural contexts, different family dynamics. So, but it's pretty clear, siblings are not seeing eye to eye on something. It's a constant cycle of, these things like verbal, physical fighting, name calling, all these things. So not good habits between siblings. And we're going to get into it right away. How to handle sibling rivalry. So, me being in a big family, having siblings of my own, I've had to deal with sibling rivalry and conflict, a lot on my own. And I've come to piece together some things that work, and also seeing some of my clients that have experienced similar issues, some things that also work. So this is more so for parents. What are things that we can do as parents to really handle that sibling rivalry? So staying out of sibling conflict as much as possible. This might not seem like it's the first thing to come to your mind. Oh, my siblings are fighting. They're getting really verbal with each other or physical. Let me intervene and stop that. Although in some moments that may be warranted, it's really incredibly important to stay out of this conflict in the attempt to allow them the chance to work on it themselves. If they're very used to mom or dad jumping in and always, playing the referee and saying this person's right, this person's wrong, as a result, we might actually be harming our kids' perception of us. Like, mom, you always side with my brother. Mom, you always side with my sister. That's not fair. You don't love me, et cetera, et cetera. We can see how that can escalate versus seeing them there together, figuring out that situation themselves. And then if they do need you in that moment, redirect. Are you listening to your sister? Did you hear what she said? Do you hear why she's upset? That's a really good way to be involved, but not really there intervening. So giving them the chance to work on it themselves. And then a really important one as well is modeling conflict resolution as a parent. So as a parent, if I am always getting into fights with my husband, for example, and I raise my voice, or I am not really listening to my partner while they're speaking to me, that's the example that we set for our kids. And unfortunately, that is the example that they will adopt. So some things like avoiding taking sides, encouraging a solution that is beneficial to everyone, setting limits, teaching empathy, and avoiding playing favorites. So not only can we model this conflict resolution with our spouse or our partner, but we can model that conflict resolution to our children as well. So instead of saying, your brother's right, your sister's right, I can say, I can hear where you're coming from and I can hear where you're coming from, but I can see that right now you guys are really heated. What's the reason for you guys being so upset right now? Hearing them and being a really good kind of a better referee, not one that's just coming in to intervene, but one that's coming in to listen and patch together the problem. Encouraging solutions, setting limits. As a parent, of course, you have that right. And teaching empathy, not only by your words, but by your actions and the way that you model love and empathy towards your spouse and as well as towards your kids can be an amazing way to teach our kids how to handle conflicts, not only with themselves, but also with people just in the world. And also facilitating harmony. This sounds very, again, cliche and basic, but it's a really important concept to have. There's no need for fairness. Everything doesn't have to be fair. Some kids will require different attention than others, and that's just the case. And that's how family dynamics run. Maybe my son needs more attention than my daughter, and that's how fights happen less. Maybe I need to do that. Not everything necessarily has to be inherently fair. And explaining that to your kids in a way that they understand is incredibly important as well. One-on-one time with each of your kids. I've heard from multiple parents. The last time I gave this talk, multiple parents said, hey, I started taking one-on-one time with each of my kids to make each of them feel heard and loved and attended to. And over time, I realized, hey, they weren't fighting and acting out as much because they got that love that we need from them. They got that attention that they needed from me. And oftentimes when we see behavior or we see negative behavior, we always think about, from a psychologist point of view, is what is the function of the behavior? If my child is suddenly acting out and throwing temper tantrums and doing, this, that, and the other, there's a reason. There's a function for that behavior. They're trying to get something, whether it be attention, whether it be love, whether it be to escape something they don't like to do. there's a reason. So we, one-on-one time can help us to find out what is the function of this behavior, what do my kids need more from me, and how can I give that to them. Team culture and family, I love that kind of. I'm really big on that. My family is super tight knit, and so we really like to do things as a united family, keeping things close together. Of course, this can be a really good mitigating factor, a protective factor to keep families close and to lower sibling conflict and family conflict overall. Giving everyone space, if everyone needs some space during a problem, that's totally okay. And family meetings, I've seen the efficacy and the benefit of family meetings in my own life. And if we have something going on, we just need to sit everyone in a room. The presence of a family, connected as a whole. Although I recognize that that's not always the case. Not everyone's family is able to have that tight knit, and be everyone there in one moment. But anyone that's available at the moment to be with and meet with to kind of discuss things would be a great way to talk about sibling rivalry and family conflict as well. And that's really all that I have. I want to open it up to questions, but thank you guys for being such great listeners, and I'm excited to hear what any questions anyone has.